In this video, I will show you how to connect a Bubble.io application with Google Sheets, okay? And so this is going to be an interesting topic. We're going to be covering lots of different things with Bubble, and so you may want to watch this video until the very end. And so here I have a diagram. We have the user. They basically go to the Bubble.io app, right? They're basically viewing the app and interacting with the app, doing various things. The Bubble.io app has a data layer, right? So this is a data layer. You can think of it as an abstraction layer. And so the real data, typically when you're building the app, it resides in this Bubble internal database. So let me go to one of my apps here, and I will show you exactly. So if I go to one of these apps and I go into this data tab here, this is where the data is, right? So you have these data types, and then you also have the app data, okay? So you have various data types. So for instance, I have order, product, store, user. This is how I define my data. And then users here cannot be deleted because that's kind of a mandatory part of Bubble. Users, user roles, authentication, things like that. And then we have order, product, store. And all of these I can basically delete, and this is where I define them. Now, if I go to the app data, I can basically create entries. So if you have any experience with relational databases, things like that, then this should absolutely look familiar, because I can go to all orders and I could basically look at the data I have or create new data, right? So this is how Bubble works out of the box. But in this video, I want to show you how we can basically use Google Sheets as a data source, because Google Sheets are awesome. They're free. They are, high performance, and, people are familiar with Google Sheets. And so if you ever used Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel or Apple Numbers or any type of spreadsheet software, you're going to be right at home. And so I personally like to use Google Sheets as a database, and there's a lot of ways of doing it. And so I'm going to show you a really cool method to do it, okay? The first thing that you need to do once you decided you want to do that is you need an API, okay? So for instance, we have our Google Sheets in this diagram here, but Google Sheets, you can't just go out and basically look at this data, right? So if I go to one of my Google Sheets here, and so here I have Google Sheets open here, and right now I can't really do anything. I can't really connect an app to it, right? What I can do is I can basically click File, and I can basically export it. I can download it as a CSV file, and then I can upload it somewhere, but that's very, very inefficient. We want an API. We want to be able to connect and get this data as we see fit, right? And so if you go into Google and you type turn Google Sheets into an API, you're going to see a lot of results. And actually, Google themselves have an API, but it's a little complicated to set up. You have to do a bunch of things. For this specific tutorial, I wanted to use a third-party app that has a generous free plan, and it's very easy to get you started. So later on, if you want to go to another API provider, you can possibly use Google's own, or you could use another one, or you can code your own. Doesn't really matter. But right now, we're just building an MVP, right? Minimum viable product, just to test things out. And so there's a lot of different API providers. There's Sheetsu, there's Sheety.co. There's a ton of them. But the one that I found that I really like is called Sheety. It's spelled SHEETY.co. And this is one that I really like. It's very, very easy, and it's super, you can get started very, very quickly with this product, okay? And so when you log in, you're going to see this project tab. When you type a new project, you can basically start it from a template or from Google Sheet. Obviously, you want to click on Google Sheet. And once you do that, you basically have to give it permission to your Google Drive, okay? And so once you give it permission to your Google Drive, it will be able to basically fetch the proper sheet, any kind of sheet that you give it. So once you start from Google Sheet, you're going to have a new diagram. It's basically going to tell you to input your Google Sheet. So all you really have to do at that point is just copy this URL here for this specific Google Sheet. And since it has access to your Google Drive, it can basically open it up. And once it opens up, you can basically do a lot of interesting things. So right now, we're in my project view for this specific app. Now, I'm not an affiliate. I am not being paid to say it. I just personally like this app. I tested a bunch of them, and this is the easiest one. And look at this one. I have one spreadsheet open. This is actually this spreadsheet. It has two sheets. And if I go back, it has two sheets here. And now for each sheet, we have various things that we can do. So for instance, you can enable or disable specific behaviors for this specific sheet. So right now, there are 4 behaviors, okay? And we have this get, which is retrieve rows for your sheet. We have a post, which is add a row. We have put, which is basically an editing feature, edit a row. And we have delete, which is basically deleting a row in your sheet. And I have everything disabled simply because my use case, I don't really need to modify the data. The app is basically only doing, it's a read-only app. It's only going to be displaying the data. And so as a result, we're giving this URL that we can basically use as an API endpoint. Okay, they're even nice enough to give us a JavaScript example. And so, if you wanna get started with JavaScript, you wanna build like a React app or a Vue app or anything with JavaScript, Ajax, things like that. They even give you a little bit of an example. But we are not doing a JavaScript client. We're using Bubble. And so the first thing you want to do is you want to copy this. You want to open another tab and you want to click it. And once you do, you're going to get the results from this sheet that we gave it. So this is sheet 1. You should see the results right away. So this is a nice little testing thing. You want to test it out. And you see that this is an object. And you have an object. You have basically key value pairs. So you have sheet 1, which is basically an array of objects, right? So this bracket means it's an array, and this means it's an object, right? And with objects, you have your key value pairs, right? So company name is Namecheap, category is domain, and these are basically the name of headers. And if we go back, I have company name, category, cookie duration, min payment, payment method, etc., etc. And so what the API is basically doing is basically listing key value pairs for each row, right? So this object is one row, right? So if we go back to our spreadsheet, we have this first row. We have this is actually second row if we don't really count the header row. And so we have Namecheap domain. That's exactly what it's doing, right? You have to understand it before you go and start working with this data, right? You need a certain understanding of this data. And so that is all we have. We basically have an object of one like key and value pair, right? We have an object with one key value pair. The key is the sheet 1, and the value is basically an array of objects, right? And this is kind of what we have. So we tested it, it's working. Now we can go further. The next thing you want to do is you want to go into your Bubble app, and I already have an app open here. And you want to start an app, right? It's very, very simple. Just click on start a new app, and you're going to be basically at this design. You may see that screen is going to be different, but I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do, right? I'm basically using a template that's from one of the sample apps, right? But I'm going to tell you exactly what I changed. The next thing you want to do is you want to go into plugins, and you want to make sure you have this API connector installed, okay? And so if you click on add plugins, you can basically type API connector, okay? So if you type API, it's going to be the first plugin. This is a plugin directly from Bubble themselves. And as you can see, I have it installed. This is all you need just to get started. It's a free plugin. You do not have to pay. There's probably other plugins that do other things, but it's not really an issue right now. We don't require anything else, right? This is enough. And so you click on this, and you're going to see your different APIs here. And so I have a bunch of APIs. I have eBay, I have Apify, I have a sports API. The one we're really interested in is Google Sheets. And really what you do is you basically click on this button, and you're going to have a diagram that looks like this. And I basically called it Google Sheets. We're not using authentication yet. We're only doing read-only. It's fine. For read-only, we don't really care about authentication, although you can set it up inside Sheety.co very, very easily. And so what you want to do is, once you open this, you fill this out, you're not going to see this view sheets. And so you're going to be clicking on add another call, or it's going to say something like add a call or something similar. And you're going to do view sheets. Now, if I expand view sheets, this is where we're getting into kind of the specifics of this API, right? We have this view sheets. And so you see this view sheets. This is what I call it. This is up to you. You can call it whatever you want. Obviously, this is a read-only kind of command. I just called it view sheets. Use as data. Data type is JSON. And then we have a GET request. And this is where you paste this URL that you got from Sheety. You basically paste this URL. And that's all you have to do. There's not going to be any parameters. It's all set up. And once you do that, you're going to have an option called initialize call. And so I'm going to click it for you just to explain what it does, because that's a very, very important feature. And once you click on initialize call, it's basically going to send the request and it's going to get data back, okay? And so in this example, we're actually using the sheet 2 API. Let me fix that so that it's all consistent, because I have 2 sheets there. And so I'm going to reinitialize again, just so it's all consistent. And we have sheet 1. This is basically, it's telling us, right, this is the sheet 1, because that is what we're getting back. So if you go back to this API call, we have sheet 1. If we had multiple records, you can choose multiple records. But in this case, we only have one. It's basically giving us for that sheet 1 only one record, right? So we're going to go back into the app and you can modify it, right? In this case, we're just doing sheet 1 and this is a list. And basically sheet 1 gave us all this data. And what Bubble is doing, this is very, very important. This is what makes Bubble super powerful, is that it basically took all that data and it mapped it automatically into various data types. Okay, and so company name is text, cookie duration is a number, minimum payout is a number. It basically looked at data and it made a best guess. And in this case, it's all fine, right? Payment method, we're not gonna mess with it. The only cases where it's gonna be an issue is if you have something like a date and maybe it doesn't pick it up. Maybe it thinks it's a string, meaning it's a text, but you want it to be a date, so you might have to do a little bit of manual mapping. But in this case, 90% of the time, you never have to mess with this. You just kind of have to look at it, and maybe you kind of have to change fields. Like, for instance, in some areas, in some fields, you might have a yes or no. And so it's a lot better for you to define something that's a yes or no than a text field, right? Because then it allows it to be easier to basically work with that data once you define it. So we look at this data, it's all fine. Actually, this ID is actually a number, so we're going to change that around. We're going to click on save, and we are done. Now, Bubble knows about this data type. So whenever we specify this view sheets, Bubble is going to know the names and the value and the names and the types of the data. And I'm going to show you exactly why that is important once we start working. So once you do that, you're all set. You're going to go into design, and you're basically gonna create something called a repeating group, okay? I already have it set up. So for instance, if we go into my elements tree and you expand this group, group B here, we have this repeating group, okay? And this repeating group, actually, I changed it around a little bit. Now it's basically telling me missing value. And that is good because I'm gonna show you exactly what you need to do. And so if you look at this missing value, we need to pick our API call. Actually, we have this view sheets here. View sheets, sheet 1. We're going to pick on that. And this data source is incorrect. So we're going to click on it, and we are going to choose view sheets here, and we're going to close. Now it's also giving us a small error here because it's not found. But now it's found, right? So if we go on here, view sheets, we click on this. We click on sheet 1, and we're good. And now everything is good. There's no errors. It's actually a light blue, which is correct. So this repeating group is fine, right? Remember, repeating group is exactly what you do when you're doing these API calls, because repeating group is what makes Bubble very powerful, in my opinion, because I can basically tie it to any API that I want. And this repeating group special kind of element field type allows me to get as much data, whether it's 1 result or 10 results, as many that I have. So in my opinion, this is a great feature. Now, the next thing you want to do is you want to create different fields, okay? So here I have 5 fields: name, category, cookie duration, payment method, commission rate, and learn more. Actually, 6, if you don't really count the learn more. And so if we ignore the learn more, we have 5 fields and then a call to action. And so if you click on this, this is basically a text, right? This is all I did. I basically took a text, but we want it to be a special type of text. So if I click on this, I want it to be view sheets sheet 1, but not just view sheets sheets 1. It's not going to work. I need to actually pick a real value, because sheet 1 is basically an array of objects, right? It needs an actual value. It needs an actual concrete data type. It doesn't understand an array of objects simply because it wants to display a certain data type, okay? And so once we click that, you're going to see all the fields that we basically configured back in Bubble back during that API call. So for instance, this is name. So we're going to click on company name. Now it's fine. This is all set up. This is actually showing not found. we're going to click on this. We're going to pick sheet 1, and then we're going to pick payment method. Okay, and now before it was showing we had 2 errors, which were here. Now it's all fine. And that is exactly the same thing. So we have sheet 1 category, sheet 1 cookie duration, sheet 1 payment method, sheet 1 commission rate. It's all set up. It's all good to go. I don't even have a workflow here because this basically gets displayed right away. This is how simple this app is. And then we have a learn more, which is the idea is, I don't really have it finished just yet, but the idea is that once they click on this, this will be a workflow. They will basically go to the particular program that we're listing. These are a bunch of programs, and they're going to be redirected to a program. And I'm actually going to be doing a tutorial where I will be explaining this method in greater depth in one of the future videos. But this is kind of all you have to do. This is why Bubble is very powerful, and this is why I'm using Bubble for a lot of my projects, because it makes API a lot easier. This is kind of, it's kind of annoying to do by hand. And so that's kind of the purpose of Bubble, is that you can build a product and get it out very, very quickly. And so now we have not only, the most important thing is this repeating group, right? So if we click on this repeating group in our elements tree, we are going to see that it's basically the type of content is view sheet 1, and the data source is view sheet 1, right? It's all connected. And then each of these fields is actually current sales view sheet 1 company name. You just basically follow it along. And now if we click on preview, it's going to show the results from Google Sheets, basically. So I click preview, it's going to load it, and guess what we have? We have the results, right? It's basically, it's a direct call. It's a live call. And so if we go back to Sheety, Sheety is basically here. You also have this refresh button, meaning that if you change some data, you can refresh it. So I believe it does cache it for a little bit as well. So in fact, if we go back to our first sheet, and let's say I modify Namecheap, I call it Namecheap1, we're going to go back to Sheety. We're going to copy this, and we're going to run a manual request. So right now, as you can see, this is the old request. It says Namecheap. But if you run it again, it's Namecheap1. So once we modified any kind of data, as you can see in Google Sheets, Sheet 1 is already, the Sheety API is basically returning our newly updated data. And if we go back into our app here, and I'm going to click on preview, in fact, I can basically reload it here. It's going to display Namecheap1 because it's basically getting it from Sheety. And this is all updated data because, once we executed this API called manual, we already see the updated data. So I'm not too sure if this tool is caching it or it's not caching it, because it does give you an option to refresh it. So you may want to email the developers and see what they say. But in my view, even if they cache it, it's going to be a very quick cache. So as you can see that once the data was updated back in our source in Google Sheets, we are basically seeing the updated data. And so this is how you do, basically this is how you integrate Bubble with Google Sheets. And in my view, this is amazing because this is our end app, and it's basically just a Google Sheet. And not only that, we can, right now this is simply a website. It's not really an app. It's kind of a website with a table that's displaying data straight from Google Sheets. And in my opinion, this is great because I can go and build a lot of sites or any kind of site that I want back in Google Sheets, and I can easily display it without worrying, the database structure, without worrying how I'm going to access this. In my view, it makes developing these MVPs a lot quicker and a lot easier. And this is really the key here, right? You have an idea, you want to build it, and that's how you build it in Bubble. Of course, you can create a React.js app, you can do a Vue.js, but then it becomes kind of annoying because you have to actually code, and it takes time. You have to check for bugs. You have to do all these things. That's why Bubble tool is getting very, very popular. And so that is what I wanted to show you in this video. We have a Bubble API, and we are going directly. We're not really doing anything. In fact, I might even make this red so that you see that this is not being used, kind of a light red color. We're basically using Bubble, and we're not storing any data locally. It's basically making these API calls, and this is great because this makes the app very modular instead of monolithic where everything is together. And so in one of the future videos, I'm going to be making an entire tutorial. We're going to be building a real app, and I'm going to show you exactly, I'm going to be designing the Google Sheets. We're going to be designing a real app. we're going to be using this tool called Sheety for the APIs to Google Sheets. And so if you want to see an app like that, if you're interested, smash the like on this video, leave a comment below, just letting me know that this is an app you would be interested. And if you've gotten value from this video, I would really appreciate it if you leave a comment or just smash a like on this video. It really helps, and that way this video is going to be shown to more people on YouTube. All right, guys, so this is all I wanted to show you in this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. You got some value here. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, because every week I'm going to be making a bunch of videos about Bubble, about other tools. We're going to be focusing on NoCode, so any kind of tools where you don't really need to write any code, okay? And so if you have any suggestions about some tool you want me to cover, maybe Airbase, maybe Bubble, maybe Glideapps, any tool you're interested in, let me know below and I will make a video about it. All right, so once again, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next video.